Well, I was sick of the gray hair, but my salon is still closed, so I tried to do it myself. I don't know if it worked out too well. I think I may have made it worse, but oh well, I guess it'll do. Anyways, chapter 14 of Hoot. Here we go. Luckily, the next day was Saturday, so Roy didn't have to get up early to catch the school bus. As he sat down for breakfast, the phone rang. It was Garrett. He'd never before called Roy, but now he wanted him to go skateboarding at the outlet mall. I don't have a skateboard, remember? Roy said. That's okay. I got an extra. No thanks. I can't make it today. The true reason that Garrett had called was, of course, to find out what had happened to Dana Matherson at Trace Middle. Dude, somebody tied him to a flagpole. Wasn't me, said Roy. On this topic, he couldn't talk freely in front of his parents. Then who? And how? Garrett demanded. No comment, said Roy, echoing mullet fingers. Aw, come on, Eberhard. See you Monday. After breakfast, his father drove him to the bicycle shop to pick up his new tire, and by noon, Roy was fully mobile again. An address for L.B. Leap was listed in the phone book, and Roy had no difficulty locating the house. It was on West Oriole Avenue, the same street as the bus stop where he'd first spotted the running boy. In the Leap driveway sat a dented old Suburban and a shiny new Camaro convertible. Roy leaned his bike against the mailbox post and hurried up the sidewalk. He heard voices bickering inside the house, and he hoped it was only a TV show with the volume turned up. After 3 firm knocks, the door swung open, and there stood Leon Leap, all 6 feet 9 inches of him. He wore baggy red gym shorts and a sleeveless mesh jersey that exposed a pale kettle-sized belly. Leon looked as if he hadn't spent 5 minutes in the exercise room since retiring from pro basketball. All that remained of his NBA physique was his height. Roy tilted back on his heels in order to see Leon's face. His expression was perturbed and preoccupied. Beatrice home? Roy asked. Yeah, but she's kind of busy right now. Oh, only take a minute, Roy said. It's about school. Oh, school, said Leon, as if he'd forgotten where his daughter went 5 days a week. With a curious grunt, he lumbered off. A moment later, Beatrice appeared. She looked stressed. Can I come in? Roy asked. No, she whispered. It's a bad time. Then can you come out? Nuh-uh. Beatrice glanced anxiously behind her. You heard what happened at the hospital? She nodded. Sorry, I didn't get back in time to help. Is your brother okay? Roy asked. Better than he was, said Beatrice. Who's there? Who is that? Demanded a chilly voice from the hallway. Just a friend. A boy? Yeah, a boy, Beatrice said, rolling her eyes for Roy's benefit. A woman not much taller than Beatrice materialized in the doorway behind her. She had a sharp nose, beady, suspicious eyes, and a wild fountain of curly auburn hair. Blue smoke curled from a cigarette poised in glittering fingertips. It could only be Lana, the mother of mullet fingers. Who are you? She asked. My name's Roy. What do you want, Roy? Lana took a noisy drag off a cigarette. It's about school, Beatrice said. Yeah, well, it's Saturday, said Lana. Roy gave it a try. I'm really sorry to bother you, Mrs. Leap. Beatrice and I are doing a science project together. Not today, you're not, Lana cut him off. Miss Beatrice here will be busy cleaning the house, and the kitchen, and the bathrooms, and anything else I can think of. Roy believed Lana was skating on thin ice. Beatrice was obviously the stronger of the two, and she was seething mad. Lana might have softened her tone had she seen what her stepdaughter's teeth had done to Roy's bicycle tire. Maybe tomorrow, Beatrice said to Roy, her jaw set grimly. Sure, whatever. He backed down the steps. We'll see about tomorrow. Lana's voice was snide and croaky. Next time, call first, she grumped at Roy. Ever heard of a telephone? As Roy rode away on his bike, he pondered the possibility that Mullet Fingers was better off roaming the woods than living at home with a witch for a mother. Roy wondered what made a grown-up turn out so ill-tempered and obnoxious. It wouldn't have surprised him if one day Beatrice literally chewed Lana's head off. His next step was Dana Matherson's house, where another shaky example of motherhood lived. Roy had a feeling that Dana's father was no prize either, and it was he who answered the door. Roy had expected another Neanderthal hulk, but Mr. Matherson was thin and jittery and unhealthy looking. Hi, my name's Roy. Sorry, we're not interested, Dana's father said politely, and began to shut the door. But I'm not selling anything, Roy said through the crack. I'm here to see Dana. Uh-oh, not again. Mr. Matherson reopened the door and lowered his voice. Let me guess, he's hired you to do his homework for him. No, sir, I'm just a friend from school. A friend? Dana didn't have many friends, Roy knew, and the few he had were all much larger and meaner looking than Roy. I ride the bus with him, Roy said, and decided to recycle Beatrice's line one more time. We're doing a science project together. Mr. Matherson's brow furrowed. Is this some kind of joke? Who are you, really? I told you. Dana's father took out his wallet. All right, young man. No more kidding around. How much do I owe you? For what? For my son's homework. Mr. Matherson held up a $5 bill. The usual? He looked defeated and ashamed. Roy felt sorry for him. Clearly, it was an ordeal raising a goon like Dana. You don't owe me a dime, Roy said. Is he home? Mr. Matherson asked Roy to wait at the door. Moments later, Dana appeared wearing droopy boxer shorts and a grimy pair of sweat socks. You, he snarled. Yup, said Roy. It's me. What are you staring at, cowgirl? Not much, Roy thought. He noticed that Dana's lisp had disappeared, along with the swelling in his upper lip. You must be nuts to ride all the way over here, Dana said, just so you can get stomped to a pulp. Come on outside. I haven't got all day. What did you say? Dana stepped onto the porch and shut the door behind him, presumably so that his father wouldn't be a witness to the bloodshed. He wound up and swung fiercely at Roy's head, but Roy saw it coming. He ducked, and Dana's fist connected solidly with a fiberglass bird feeder. Once Dana stopped howling, Roy said, Every time you try to hurt me, something bad happens to you. Haven't you noticed? Dana was doubled over, shaking his injured hand. He glared up at Roy. Like yesterday, Roy went on, when you tried to kill me in the janitor's closet. Remember? You ended up getting whooped by a girl, stripped naked, and strung to a flagpole. I wasn't naked, Dana snapped. I had my underpants on. When you go back to school Monday, everybody's going to be laughing at you. Everybody, Dana, and it's your own stupid fault. All you had to do was leave me alone. How hard is that? Yeah, well, they'll be laughing even louder when I kick your skinny ass to a kingdom come, cowgirl. They'll be laughing like hyenas, only you won't be around to hear 'em. In other words, Roy said irritably, you haven't learned a thing. That's right, and you can't make me. Roy sighed. The only reason I came over here was to talk things out, put a stop to all this dumb fighting. That had been his mission. If only he could make peace with Dana Matherson, even temporarily, then he'd be free to focus his energy on solving the mullet finger's dilemma. But Dana hooted in his face. You must be crazy. After all the crap that's happened to me, you're so dead, Eberhard. You're so dead it ain't even funny. Roy realized it was no use. Hopeless. That's what you are, he said. By the way, that's a cool shade of purple. He pointed at Dana's swollen knuckles. Get out of here, cowgirl, now! Roy left him there on the porch, pounding the front door and bellowing for his father to let him in. Evidently, the lock had clicked behind him when he'd come outside to take a punch at Roy. It was a funny scene, Dana hopping up and down in his baggy boxer shorts, but Roy wasn't in the mood to enjoy it.